All right, I'm back. It's been a very interesting, complicated past week, and making this video took a little bit longer than I wanted to come out with. On top of that, I have lost my black ski mask, so now I've resorted to my old military baklava. So, with that being said, we're going to pick up with part three, and hopefully, this is the last part of my Who Am I series before moving on. And some of the stuff that has happened this past week, I would also like to be talking about in future videos. So, with that being said, leaving off with where we last talked about with part two. So, we're in Bagram, Afghanistan, and we finally managed to get our way to Fob Thompson, Farah, Afghanistan. Small fob in a valley with only more or less 200 Allied personnel. And I say Allied because the Czechs were there, which was cool. A lot of special forces was there. But other than that, it was mostly Army. And me and my team, we were the only Air Force personnel, aside from like one PJ, on the base. Now, we get there at midnight, and only half of us have night vision goggles. So we walk out, and it was right out of a video game. As soon as we left the aircraft, we loaded our weapons, and we were making our way forward. We were told that we were outside the wire. And to make matters even worse, within maybe about 10 seconds, there was a loud explosion. I didn't know what it was, but come to find out, it was artillery firing loom rounds. And a lot of us who have never been in combat before assumed, oh my god, we're already under attack. This is crazy. Only to hear in the distance, that was us. So, now we knew. So, a very interesting first experience with combat. Well, not really combat, but you get the idea. The next day, we were already introduced to our replacements. We got familiar with the truck, and right off the bat, hey, your mission, our mission in Farah, Afghanistan, is to provide firefighting suppression for incoming aircraft that are here to transport people and supplies to or out of the base. So, we would go out there, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you, the viewer, look at it, the ANA compound, Afghan National Army, was next to us, and they were also out on the flight line. And unfortunately, we've heard stories where they have been bribed by the Taliban. There's been a lot of like blue on green, green on blue. I don't remember the exact terminology, but basically a lot of friendly fire. Come to find out that, oh no, that person was Taliban. It was paid off. So we did have an instance where we had a guy walk up to our fire truck carrying a big backpack, and that freaked a lot of us out because we have no idea what these people's intentions are. Asked us a lot of questions I probably shouldn't be asking, but some of us thought we were going to die, but luckily none of us died. The next day was probably one of the highlights of my life as far as having a brush with death. And I laugh about it because everyone makes the joke that I shit my pants, but we were checking out trucks, and I went to go use the restroom in a porta potty, and not even a few minutes in, I hear a whoosh, and I'm like, what was that? Followed by a massive explosion that ripped through my body, just the shock wave from it. Come to find out, a mortar landed on a HESCO barrier right behind where the porta potty was. And we later determined, as far as myself goes, it was within 50 feet, which was very, very close. But my tech sergeant at the time, he was actually behind the HESCO barrier. I was a little bit more down the HESCO barrier. But that guy, if that HESCO barrier wasn't there, he would definitely be dead. And we had radios with us when we got to the bunker, and we heard, "Hey, we see enemies bugging out. They are armed. They are fleeing. We suspect that they are the ones that attacked us." And Sergeant of the Guard, all towers just light up, and all we heard was just machine gun fire. And I don't know if they got them or not, but I guess from what I heard was the entire hillside was lit up. So mortar attacks happened about, I would say, every other day. And luckily from that point moving forward, they wouldn't fall within the wire. Some of them did manage to end up in the A&A compound, but and I guess one of them actually did kill an A&A troop because we were out on a standby and there was a casket going into one of the Cam Air, I believe it was Cam Air, airplanes, which, speaking of Cam Air, I could be wrong, but Cam Air is the airline of Afghanistan. They have Boeing planes, and you can kind of tell where they got their planes from because some of their planes have Southwest airline color schemes on them. And it would be interesting because we would sometimes go out on the flight line for these standbys for our aircraft, but Cam Air would land and people would come out, Afghan, civilians. They would come out, and a lot of the guys would come out, and they're taking selfies as we are in the background. So it was one of those, they're either taking it because it's cool that they're getting pictures of foreigners, foreign military, or intel. And then some of the media that I saw growing up, like we're in a Muslim country, we see women wearing burqas. We actually got to see that. So it was kind of a, how do I put this? Media got it right. Media in the flesh. Or more respectively, culture in the flesh. Actually watching people wearing the burqas, traditional clothing. Actually seeing the people was very interesting. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I never really got to meet any of the locals, but from how it felt and from how it looked, because we were stuck in the fire truck and people were walking around us, we were not allowed to get out of the fire truck. So it was kind of like, respectively, being on a safari where we would watch the locals, how they would interact with us, how they'd interact getting off the plane, going to the airport behind us, giving us weird looks. It was pretty universal. Like if you waved, they would wave back. If they waved, you would wave back. So there was some friendliness. Nighttime was very sketchy because some of the A&A individuals would have searchlights, and we would be out, and they would be scanning the valley. They'd be scanning the valley, and they're supposed to be looking for Taliban. They're supposed to be, on guard. But there were moments where they're scanning. Hey, look, there's fire trucks over here on the flight line. Scanning. 5 minutes later, hey, look, they're still here. And it's like, stop that. You're giving away our position. And it was very sketchy. And there were times where A&A would come out on their towers, and they'd look over us and like, hey, they'd watch us. And it was very sketchy. On top of that, flights coming in were a constant, day, night. So nighttime was very hard because we would have to stay up at night, and a lot of the guys were like, I am tired, I cannot think, I cannot focus, I want to go to sleep. I was credited with being vigilant, and how everyone else, at least in my fire truck, fell asleep. I was the only one, at least on guard, actually looking around. I would take my buddy's night vision goggles and actually scan. Hey, we got something over there. Okay, they're farmers at midnight. So, a lot of crazy stories in Afghanistan. There was a time where we actually had special forces come in, and one of them got hurt getting out of the aircraft. I guess he sprained his ankle. because there was a ditch and he fell right through it. Jokingly, it looked like Mario going down one of those pipes where I had an NVGs and I watched him run across the fight line and then just fell, and then come to find out he got hurt. Apparently, he didn't know where he was going, because when he asked, "Where are we?" "Well, we're in Farah. We got medical staff. Do you want to, stay overnight and get treated?" "Fuck no, get me the hell out of here." And apparently that kind of told me a little bit about what we were dealing with out here. If you got a really tough special forces guy not wanting to be in a certain location, really kind of made me wonder, where exactly was I? We did have dogs on base, which was a no-no, but they were allowed with the Army commander that was there. There were about 6 dogs, and there was a dog called Ghost. We only saw that dog at night. A dog called Pop-Tart, which was red. We had 2 pregnant dogs. I don't know their breeds. And then another dog called Taz, which apparently the Special Forces guys did a raid, and this stray dog just jumped onto their vehicle and was like along for the ride, and I guess they adopted him. I can't remember the other dog, but the 2 dogs that were pregnant did end up having puppies, and we actually built them a shed to stay in one of the bunkers. I felt really bad for those puppies though, because they were right next to the artillery pit, and every time they fired off artillery or loom rounds, those dogs would jump, and I know dogs have good hearing, so I can only imagine how crap or how scared they would be. But basically, if we weren't doing anything, we would just go into the bunker and just play with the puppies a little bit, pet the puppies. You'd sit down and they'd like rest in your lap. I definitely wanted to adopt one, but I couldn't, which was fine. So the peace treaty, or at least a ceasefire, was signed on the 1st of March, and then we got the word that we the firefighters, were leaving Farah. We left about a week later, and we spent maybe about 3 days in Bagram. I managed to go to the bazaar on Bagram. I got a bunch of Afghan goodies. I got jewelry. A buddy got a rug. I got coins. Like, I bought Afghani money. They have stuff from the Soviet era, like abandoned watches, wallets, badges from like the 1980s, and it was like, wow, like they're still selling this stuff. Lots of lapis jewelry. At the time, I bought my mom and my girlfriend lapis jewelry. I guess a little thing about my girlfriend that I was dating at the time was, and I'll talk about this in future videos, was she was in constant contact. There was a time I was actually calling her in Farah. We were attacked, and she was like, "Oh, damn, I need to go." So I was like, "Yeah, you do. I need to go." But I bought her jewelry. She was getting ready to graduate from nursing school. Very happy for her. But she kept in constant touch. There were some problems, but I didn't know there were problems in that moment. But they would come to light later in the year, but I'll get to that. So we go back to Qatar, and our jobs were to be available to go anywhere in the Middle East at any given moment. And there was about a month of there are no missions. COVID's flaring up, and missions are actually being shut down because of COVID. So it was a great time for me to go to college. I have never been good at math, but I decided to do math, an algebra class, a college algebra class, in a deployed environment, if you want to consider Qatar a deployed environment. And I got about halfway done with the class until we were assigned to a mission, Kabul, Afghanistan. And we were there because a lot of the firefighters there were getting sick of COVID, or were getting sick of leadership on how they were handling COVID. So we got over there, and come to find out, it took me a few days to realize it. Come to find out, it's a NATO base. The Kabul airport is the international airport there in Afghanistan. And there were a bunch of people from a bunch of different countries. And it was amazing because I'll get to it, but we got a makeshift fire station, we got a Connex box, and we had a tent, and then an office building, which was very small, about the size of this room that I'm sitting in. And then 2 fire trucks that were made in Germany. Half of it was in English, half of it was in German. And we had to use bar instead of PSI as far as like water pressure goes. So we actually had to learn bar, which was crazy. And on top of that, the Afghans were down the runway a little bit, so we got to see some of their Russian helicopters, some of the helicopters that they have from us. While we were there, we heard of some female pilots that graduated. Good for them. But this was an amazing time. We had shops from all over Europe. We had shops from Turkey. They were selling like cigarettes. We had an Italian shop selling goods. There was a German BX. There were 2 DFACs, a Turkish DFAC and a American DFAC. The Turkish DFAC was, I only went there once, and not because I didn't like it, but I was very biased towards the American DFAC. But the Turkish DFAC had like a pasta bar. I actually got to meet the head chef. He was wearing a black Adidas tracksuit with gold, but he had his chef hat. Dude walked out right in the middle of the DFAC, crossed his arms, like he is feeding his people. It was amazing. Ironically, the Russians and Ukrainians were there before everything spilled over that we know today. It was very weird. Speaking of the Russians, they did supply us, not a lot, not as much as other countries. The Turkmens supplied us in Farah. The Russians supplied us in Farah. Some contractor companies supplied us in Farah. So that was weird, seeing countries that you would never think about or even consider an adversary helping you, or at least having some kind of common goal, some kind of common mission. So that was interesting. Now I speak a little German, and I befriended a German police officer there, and we built a relationship really well. He showed me his compound, his work compound. He introduced me to some of his friends. He gave me patches. He even gave me one of his military Santees. And then we did like combat training. He showed me a little bit of how they do medical. And then a different time we did weapons fam. He showed me the MG3, the G36. He showed me the MP7. I have all these pictures. Hopefully I get to post them in a like kind of like a photo video at some point. But the entire time I'm speaking German. They're trying their best to speak English, but both of them didn't speak good English. So I really had to pull it out of me to speak the best German I could. Eventually we were actually told to not hang out anymore. I guess their commander heard about an American hanging out with them, and that commander was just kind of, hey, I don't know where that American's been, but everyone was very concerned about COVID. So it was good while it lasted. I got some of the best sleep in my life in Kabul, Afghanistan. I had this blanket that oddly reminded me of sleeping over at my grandma's house. Falling asleep to airplanes on the apron, and something about the temperature with the whole trifecta, was perfect. Best sleep I ever got. The sun woke up. The sun would rise very early in Afghanistan. Very early. I remember there were a few mornings I'd wake up. Oh man, it's got to be like 5 or 6 in the morning. Dude, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. But the sun would set at 7, which is like really early. So it was interesting. I'd be up and about brushing my teeth, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. To make things even more interesting, I would video chat with my parents, and it's sunny there, and it's sunny here. We're sharing the same sun, but we're directly on the other side of the planet. Directly on the other side of the planet, which was really weird, but really cool and interesting. I did drink dirty water. Oopsies. My dorm was with the Albanians, and I remember some guy, I believe his name was Igor, came running in when he saw me rinse my toothbrush under a sink and then proceeded to brush my teeth. He runs in, no, water bad, what are you talking about, dude? And then I went to the fire station. Hey, did you know the water's bad here? And I was basically given the no shit. So oops. I did have constipation. I went to the base clinic, and there was a Czech nurse there, and I was like, oh my god, sprechen Sie Deutsch? Please tell me you speak German. I can translate this. I can fix this. And she's like, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about. She got an Australian officer. That dude was cool. Dude came out wearing military pants but a Hawaiian vacation t-shirt. And that dude was living it up. That's all I can say. Gave me medication. I was better 9 days later. 9 days later. We did leave Kabul, or before we left Kabul, we were awarded the NATO Non-Article 5 medal, which was amazing because it felt really great to help our allies. It felt really great to serve alongside our allies. I remember when I first joined the military, I told my deputy, like, hey, here's all the awards that I want, and one of them was a NATO ribbon. He's like, Richardson, no one ever gets the NATO ribbon anymore. Unless you're a high-ranking officer, no one gets it anymore. So I got it within my first enlistment on my first deployment. And yeah, it was kind of a flex. So we did go back to Qatar. We did have to quarantine, and well, come to find out 2 days later, someone got COVID. So we had to move into a different building. And let's see, once we got out of quarantine, we worked for the Al-Udeid fire department while the guard guys went home. And that was also fun. What made being a part of the fire department in Qatar fun was, for the longest time, I didn't want to be a firefighter. And we would run about more or less 10 calls a day. Most of them were alarm activations, and there's a few medicals because people don't like to drink water apparently, and they got heat stroke or heat exhaustion. But we were running a lot of calls, and it was oddly fun. I felt busy. And then it was one of those, like, we're done with training. You're either eating food, watching TV, or you're going on a call. And we went on a lot of calls. We had calls back to back. We had calls to some of our allies' dorms. I think I went to the Australians one time. I think I went to the British one time. I went to the French one time, and apparently my reputation of, Richardson knows languages. Richardson, go translate for us. I don't really speak French, sir. Go translate. Tell me to get out of the building. Okay. Party difference, say, everyone out! And during this time, I also met a French colonist. She was from Algeria, and she was talking about how I joined the French military, and she just wanted to be a French citizen, and this was her way to be a French citizen. I was friends with her for a little bit, and then I actually ran on her dorm. So she actually got to see me in action, kind of like, oh, I know you. Look at you go. And It was cool. It was cool. We left really late. We were supposed to leave like sometime in July. We left late August, almost September. Quarantined when we got back to Oklahoma for 2 weeks. Um, my first day back to work was 9/11. I did manage to go back to Washington for a few days, and I met my girlfriend, and she was happy that I was back, but there was something off about her, and I'll talk about that in a different video. Things kind of got a little bad, and I'm looking at the time. I'm trying to keep these movies or these videos at about 30 minutes. I got back to Oklahoma, and we had another one of my buddies pass away. On top of that, my girlfriend came down. She wanted to see me at a moment's notice. She flew down within a few days, stayed with me for a few days. She was completely off. I was like, what is wrong with you? And come to find out, that would be the last time I would see her in the flesh. I guess she went back to Washington, and that was it. Something weird happened around this time, which I'll explain in a different video. But basically, December of 2020, January of 2021 was very depressing. I did have signs of PTSD. I was told that I had the 1,000-yard stare at times. People would close doors or cabinets, and I would flinch. And it was rough trying to adjust back into American life, especially in a non-combat environment situation. Trying to adjust back into my old routine. I've been gone for 7-8 months. I'm gonna stop it here, and then I guess we're doing a part 4. So that is all she wrote. Stand by for part 4.